Quality of life is closely linked to energy use. However, our development model and use of resources are no longer sustainable. We need to decarbonize the planet by focusing on renewable and clean energy. Our strategy for sustainable development includes renewable gases such as hydrogen. Hydrogen is an essential chemical element. It is the most abundant element in the universe. It can be produced from solar energy and wind power to provide clean energy for housing, transport and industry everywhere in the world. It can be easily transported and stored, also leveraging on existing infrastructure at relatively low costs. Snam will provide both physical and intellectual networks to confront these challenges, because how we act today will shape the planet tomorrow. Snam, energy to inspire the world.
Buongiorno, good morning and welcome, benvenuti alla seconda giornata dell'Hydrogen Challenge, spero mi sentiate. Capisco che questo è un momento importante di networking, ma adesso entriamo nel vivo di questa seconda giornata. Ovviamente questa importantissima conferenza che è stata promossa e organizzata da Snam con il contributo e il patrocinio di autorità nazionali e internazionali. Mi dispiace interrompere il vostro parlare, ma iniziamo i nostri lavori di una giornata che sarà un'intera mattinata ma molto intensa. Ovviamente ci occupiamo della rivoluzione dell'idrogeno. Per chi di voi non ci fosse stato ieri, è di questo che stiamo parlando, di quanto l'idrogeno può rappresentare un elemento fondamentale, una fonte di energia per il prossimo futuro, ovviamente pulita, e quindi che è fondamentale nel processo di decarbonizzazione del pianeta. Faccio un breve recap del 10 ottobre per chi non ci fosse stato. Ieri sono intervenuti diverse autorità istituzionali italiane, primo tra tutti il Presidente del Consiglio Giuseppe Conte, ma anche il Ministro dello Sviluppo Economico Stefano Patuanelli e il Sottosegretario di Stato per gli Affari Esteri e la Cooperazione Internazionale Manlio Di Stefano, oltre che il Presidente dell'Autorità dell'Energia Stefano Besseghini. Sono intervenute anche le istituzioni europee con il videomessaggio di David Sassoli, il Presidente del Parlamento Europeo, e anche il Direttore Esecutivo dell'International Energy Agency, che ha espresso come e perché l'idrogeno può diventare un vettore energetico del futuro. Sono stati approfonditi i temi legati all'idrogeno per combattere i cambiamenti climatici, alle policy, gli investimenti sostenibili e l'innovazione, che in questo caso gioca una parte assolutamente fondamentale, le nuove tecnologie per lo sfruttamento, per l'utilizzo, per la produzione di idrogeno. E poi l'economia chiaramente legata all'idrogeno, perché questa rivoluzione in questo modo può diventare non solamente appunto un'opportunità per il pianeta, ma anche un'opportunità di business per player internazionali e per il nostro paese. Sono stati ovviamente retweetati molto, e quindi devo dire che queste notizie hanno suscitato interesse. Sono stati siglati da Snam 2 importanti accordi con il CNR, il Centro Ricerca Nazionale, e la Startup Nation Israele, quindi il governo israeliano, per lo sviluppo di tecnologie innovative grazie alle start-up e alla ricerca. Quindi questo sicuramente è un punto d'orgoglio per Snam, che ha organizzato questa conferenza. Chi di voi chiaramente ha partecipato ieri sa già che l'hashtag è iChallenge, per ovviamente continuare questo dibattito sui social, su Twitter, citando, ovviamente menzionando all'account @Snam, e poi seguendolo anche sulla pagina Instagram. Ricordo che Snam ha una pagina Instagram, un profilo che è appunto Snam Channel, quindi con iChallenge si può twittare e dare il proprio contributo anche sui social. Gli highlights della seconda giornata. Oggi è una mattinata dedicata prevalentemente ad un approfondimento più tecnico, più operativo. Si approfondirà inizialmente il potenziale dell'utilizzo dell'idrogeno in Italia con un intervento a cura di McKinsey. Poi ci sarà un focus sul tema della catena del valore dell'idrogeno, che sarà a cura di Malco Arberai, il CEO di Snam. Poi cercheremo di comprendere anche quali sono le tecnologie innovative del prossimo futuro, da qui al 2030 e oltre, insieme al WEF. E poi è previsto anche un keynote speech del segretario generale di Hydrogen Europe, che rappresenta l'industria europea, le associazioni nazionali e i centri di ricerca attivi nel settore dell'idrogeno e delle celle a combustibile. La mattinata è ovviamente, visto che siete seduti a 3 tavoli, dedicata all'Hydrogen Workshop, che appunto è stato realizzato da Snam in collaborazione col World Economic Forum e che viene guidato dal World Economic Forum secondo le sue modalità. Quindi ognuno di voi seduti ai tavoli chiaramente darà il suo contributo operativo e il suo contributo lavorativo e di partecipazione al tavolo. Dunque vi vedo già seduti ognuno ai propri tavoli, subito dopo il coffee break inizierà questo workshop appunto con la discussione tematica che si divide in 3 tavoli tematici appunto e quindi 3 grandi questioni: hydrogen production, hydrogen storage and transport, hydrogen use and demand. Quindi queste sono le 3 aree su cui si lavorerà. Ricordo quindi che successivamente al workshop, dopo ovviamente i closing remarks che verranno fatti e anche il summary di quello che è emerso dai workshop, ci sarà alle 13 un networking lunch presso il Grand Hotel Plaza, dove comunque si potranno continuare ad approfondire magari dei temi che all'interno dell'ora di workshop forse avete ancora in mente di approfondire. A questo punto, per iniziare, prima di iniziare la nostra giornata, introduco e invito ovviamente sul palco per l'intervento istituzionale il Ministro per gli Affari Europei, Vincenzo Amendola. Benvenuto.
Grazie, buongiorno a tutti voi. Avrete una giornata di intenso lavoro, quindi io sarò breve e sono qui per augurarvi ovviamente successo come nella prima giornata. Io ringrazio il Presidente, il CEO, Dal Fabbro, Marco Alverà, ringrazio tutti quelli che sono qui, le 70 imprese che sono oggi a discutere di una rivoluzione. Si può usare il termine rivoluzione? Si usa tante volte, ma noi dobbiamo sintonizzarci su una nuova lunghezza d'onda. Ieri il Presidente del Consiglio, nell'approvare in Consiglio dei Ministri ieri pomeriggio il decreto clima, ha parlato lungamente di questa conferenza. Io ero contento perché partecipandovi anche oggi ho capito che il messaggio che il Presidente ha ricevuto, gli altri ministri, il Ministro Patuanelli che era qui, è un messaggio forte che ci dà fiducia e ci dà fiducia perché la parola rivoluzione in connessione alla tecnologia, alle scelte che dobbiamo fare, funziona. Noi ci troviamo in un periodo particolare, questo è il senso del mio messaggio al Presidente del CEO, ne stiamo discutendo molto, oggi vedrò il board member italiano della BEI, oggi pomeriggio, il Ministro Gualtieri ieri nelle sue riunioni anche a Lussemburgo ne hanno iniziato a parlare. Siamo in un periodo che io vorrei dire sommessamente di ottimismo, perché nasce una nuova Commissione europea, è nato anche un nuovo governo italiano, ma in Italia sapete non fa tanto notizia, e la nuova Commissione europea ha scelto nelle sue linee di indirizzo con la Presidente Ursula von der Leyen e con il Vicepresidente che sarà incaricato per il Green New Deal, il Vicepresidente Franz Timmermans, di investire il cambiamento dell'Unione Europea, la conquista di una sovranità tecnologica sull'economia sostenibile proprio sull'ambiente, sul green. Ora è tempo però che questa possibilità e questa nuova finestra che si è aperta nei discorsi in Parlamento europeo, nella nascita della nuova Commissione, nel nuovo indirizzo della Banca Europea di Investimenti si traduca in proposte. Noi italiani siamo bravi a parlare male dell'Europa, a dire l'Europa è lontana, ritardi, burocrazia, è una musica che purtroppo sentiamo tante volte. Quello che invece dobbiamo fare adesso, e questo convegno e la proposta di Snam che ci entusiasma, è nella finestra, in questa green window che si è aperta di possibilità, portare proposte, perché ovviamente ci sarà una sfida per la riduzione delle emissioni. Ci sono strumenti che stiamo discutendo nel quadro finanziario pluriennale 2021-2027, c'è la BEI che sta ricostruendo il suo climate, la sua attitudine ad essere una climate bank, c'è tutta la proposta che la Commissione, anche il nostro commissario Paolo Gentiloni, devono individuare, che significa investimenti, che significa riconversione a una transizione ecologica del sistema industriale, che significa proposte. Nel 2020, nei primi 6 mesi, si discuterà della riforma del mercato del gas, che non è solo un tema su cui noi ovviamente difenderemo quelle che sono le prerogative del sistema industriale, la Snam, queste parole che usano a Bruxelles, la tassonomia, che sembra a volte sono cose oscure. Noi dobbiamo difendere un sistema industriale che però non è solo rivolto al passato, è rivolto alla sfida che voi oggi discutete, perché sappiamo che con il Green New Deal, per quello che ha detto anche il vicepresidente Timmermans in Parlamento europeo nella sua audizione, cioè la scelta dell'idrogeno, noi possiamo utilizzare la tecnologia e la struttura che abbiamo dal passato per immettere fisicamente una nuova sfida. Noi sappiamo che in queste ore si discute di un Mediterraneo da paura, perché le parole conflitto, perché l'instabilità in molti paesi che sono qui davanti a noi ci preoccupano. Però sappiamo anche che nel Mediterraneo ci sono le più grandi possibilità, non solo le più grandi scoperte tecnologiche fatte da imprese italiane, ma anche una possibilità nuova. E sono contento che il vicepresidente Timmermans nell'audizione ha parlato proprio di questo, di capire come le due sponde del Mediterraneo, che è Europa e non è qualcosa fuori, possono costruire interconnessioni e connessioni tecnologiche, non solo sulle fonti tradizionali, ma investendo su una grande rivoluzione che è quella dell'idrogeno, di costruire tra le fonti rinnovabili e la nuova tecnologia una nuova possibilità. Il mio messaggio è questo, è di ottimismo. Discuteremo da qui a dicembre del nuovo quadro finanziario pluriennale, significa le nuove strumentazioni che abbiamo e ci doteremo come Commissione europea e come 27 paesi, ancora il 28esimo è un question mark che vedremo nelle prossime ore. Discuteremo ovviamente dell'agenda strategica, cioè dei punti principali della Commissione, e i negoziati più importanti verranno adesso, non solo unione economica e bancaria, ma anche mercato del gas. E si vince in un negoziato, voi me lo insegnate, il Presidente e il CEO me lo insegnano, si vince in un negoziato non solo se si alza la voce o se si dà una postura così imponente, si vince in un negoziato se si hanno proposte che siano proposte non solo rivoluzionarie, ma che aprono un nuovo spettro di iniziative e di sfide. L'impegno del governo italiano, il Presidente Conte, anche mio, che lavoro a Bruxelles più che a Roma per queste trattative, è quello di avere sul tavolo proposte che diano un senso di cambiamento all'Unione Europea. Sappiamo che alcuni negoziati saranno duri, c'è questo Just Transitional Fund che viene usato spesso per dare più una mano a quelli che stanno ancora utilizzando carbone. E sappiamo che noi dobbiamo mediare con interessi di economie che ancora in Europa non hanno fatto delle scelte rivoluzionarie, ma più saranno forti i messaggi come da questo convegno e dai progetti di Snam, più saremo bravi a muovere l'Europa. Green New Deal è un grande slogan, Green New Deal è una grande attenzione a una transizione ecologica di sviluppo sostenibile, ma Green New Deal deve significare proposte. Altrimenti sarà ancora una retorica che tra politici e tra negoziatori ci si ripete senza andare al fondo e al nocciolo delle questioni. Sviluppo tecnologico significa sovranità tecnologica europea e questo deve coniugarsi con una grande sfida di cambiamento. Io ringrazio, come ha fatto il Presidente del Consiglio ieri, Snam, ringrazio il Presidente, il CEO Marco e tutti voi che siete qui, perché quello che voi discuterete, le proposte che verranno, per noi sono fondamentali in una fase centrale dei negoziati della nuova Commissione, degli investimenti verdi che dobbiamo spingere, della riforma del mercato del gas, per rendere questo nostro continente non solo un continente dove si discute, ma dove si producono grandi cambiamenti che diano lezioni al mondo di oggi. Vi ringrazio.
Grazie Ministro, grazie. From this moment we speak in English to make the discussion more direct to foreigners. So I said at the beginning, let's move on with a focus on the potential of hydrogen in Italy. I introduce and welcome to Bernd Hyde, Senior Partner at McKinsey.
So thank you very much for the kind introduction My name is Bernd Heid, and I'm senior partner at McKinsey & Company, and I lead our global hydrogen initiatives. I'm excited to be here with you today to speak about the future of hydrogen and its potential for Italy. And thank you very much for Marco Alverà for inviting me to this event. This event is probably the most important gathering on hydrogen in Italy so far, and I'm super excited to share some of our insights on our study that we just conducted. Let's first look at the challenge of decarbonization. So, the world needs to decarbonize its energy system. To limit the global warming to 1.5 degree scenario, we need to reduce 95% of the emissions until 2050. We need to achieve this level of decarbonization despite the fact that the economy is growing. And by 2050, we expect a doubling of the GDP as of today. Applied to Italy, it means that we have to go from around 440 million tons of CO2 today, as little as 25 million tons by 2050. In 2018, Italy defined the PNIAC plan, which aims to decarbonize already 40% by 2030, or equivalent to 125 million tons of CO2. This means an acceleration of a factor of 3.5 as compared to today. One key lever in that is the accelerated rollout of solar and wind power. So after 2030, another 390 million tons of CO2 need to be abated. This is as much as cumulated the emission of Italy today in industry, power, transport and agriculture together. This comes with two challenges. So first, we need to integrate wind and solar into the energy system. And second, we need to also decarbonize the sectors that are otherwise hard to abate. So hydrogen can play an important role in this transition. So I want to highlight a few roles in there. So first, hydrogen can integrate wind and solar into the energy mix. Sun does not always shine and wind does not always blow, and if they do so, the end users might not need that energy. So we need a mean to balance this peak performance in the grid. And hydrogen is an ideal carrier to basically store energy. Second, hydrogen can connect locations with superior renewable power and high energy demands. So for example, the south of Italy has a great solar potential, and at the same time we have a high energy demand in the north. And thirdly, hydrogen can decarbonize end users. It can even decarbonize those end users that are difficult to electrify, like transport or the industry. So this deep decarbonization will be key to keep the demanding and ambitious climate targets. So this chart shows all of Italy's greenhouse gas emissions today. For instance, the column that you see on the left indicates that right now iron and steel, chemicals and refining together account for almost 40% of that energy emission. In order to achieve 95% of the decarbonization scenario, it means that each sector has to decarbonize, and there's not a single one that can be left out of that equation. So for many sectors, electrification is the best answer to decarbonize. However, even in the most aggressive electrification scenarios, we only see a maximum share of 60% of electrification in the long run. Hence, 40% of the energy mix, we will need to find alternative ways to decarbonize. And these sectors are hard to abate elsewhere. So a few examples where hydrogen really offers solutions to decarbonize these sectors. So for example, trucking. Hydrogen can achieve similar driving range and refueling times like diesel. In heating, hydrogen can be blended into existing gas infrastructure without rebuilding an electric grid infrastructure in urban areas. In steel making, hydrogen can be used to reduce iron ore in the process of producing steel. And as much, hydrogen can play an important role for Italy to achieve that broad decarbonization. Let us look at the hydrogen production. So green hydrogen today is almost twice as expensive as conventional gray hydrogen produced by steam methane reforming. Gray hydrogen is currently very cheap, but will get more cost effective over time as we either need to store and capture the carbon or we need to pay a price for CO2 emission. So green hydrogen, on the other hand, will get more cost competitive over time, and that is driven by two factors. First, the rapid decline in cost for wind and solar is expected to continue. So by 2030, in our calculation, we assume that solar and wind will reduce another 50% of the cost base as compared to today. Secondly, we see a massive trajectory in the cost efficiency of electrolyzers. As electrolyzer industry is scaling up and industrializes these processes, we see a cost reduction of 40% of the electrolyzer cost up until 2030 compared to today. That means in most places where green hydrogen today is not cost competitive, we see a massive decline in the cost, and so green hydrogen becomes even cost competitive and break even to gray hydrogen. Italy has in particular very good solar resources. That translates into a strong advantage for green hydrogen production, because 80% of the cost of hydrogen are related to the power that goes into the production. So Italy is an ideal place to start green hydrogen production. So we expect, for example, the break even in green hydrogen production in Italy being 5 to 10 years earlier than other countries in Europe, for example, in Germany, in that calculation. That puts Italy in a unique position as we see green hydrogen is becoming competitive in the industry earlier than other places in Europe. And hence, we will be able to scale up faster with less incentives required. So moreover than just producing domestic resources, Italy has an advantage for also importing of hydrogen. So as you can see on the map, and we depicted basically the cost of hydrogen production, red meaning low, blue meaning expensive. North Africa has a great potential for solar and wind production. So in fact, hydrogen produced in North Africa could be up a third cheaper than, for example, in Central Europe or in Germany. Moreover, there are plenty of solar sites that could be used in North Africa. So we did a model calculation, and just putting solar factories in place in 0.1%. In 0.1% of the Sahara Desert will be sufficient to meet the full energy demand of Italy today. So to get this energy from North Africa to Europe, we need to convert it into hydrogen. So by using existing pipelines from North Africa to Italy, we can transport that energy from Italy also to the rest of Europe. So the current capacity of these pipelines that run between Tunisia and Sicily are around 30 billion cubic meters of gas per year. And we calculated that into a hydrogen equivalent. That means around 300 terawatt hours of hydrogen could meet over the long run the full demand of Italy. There are not so many of these, what we call energy corridors into Europe. So one alternative is ship hydrogen from Middle East to Europe, but that requires either to liquefy hydrogen or to ship it and convert it into ammonia. Other alternatives to get energy into Europe are hydrogen from natural gas that we could, for example, import from Norway or Russia. However, that is not a clean energy, so we need to also have a process to capture and store carbon that is produced with this gas. So, of course, these projects are very complex to run and challenges remain. Nevertheless, we believe Italy has a very strong position to become an important hydrogen hub for Europe. And this could also be being an efficient hub for hydrogen production to not only meet the demand of hydrogen in Italy, but also in other parts of Europe. So let us look at the demand potential that we calculated. So on this chart, you basically see across the various sectors individual end users and applications. You see the timeline when we think that this demand is being deployed, and you see bubbles indicating the size of energy or hydrogen that is being used in these sectors. And the larger the bubbles on this chart, the more we see a potential for hydrogen use. So you see that even today, hydrogen is already used as a feedstock in various applications. That is in the chemical industry, that is in refining, and that is also in ammonia production. So, and as the cost for green hydrogen will fall, the existing demand of hydrogen can be converted from today gray hydrogen into green hydrogen. And as hydrogen costs keep falling further, hydrogen will also become competitive in new demand sectors. So for instance, fuel cell powered trains have by far a better cost position than to electrify tracks that are not yet electrified today. In long-haul trucking, fuel cell powered trucks have a better TCO or similar TCO than diesel applications as of today. And in buildings, hydrogen can be used to blend into the grid to decarbonize also the gas use. There are also sectors like maritime application, aviation, steel, and high-grade heat, where hydrogen is best at scale as a solution to decarbonize in the long run. So taking all of that together, by 2030, we see a hydrogen demand potential of around 30 terawatt hours in Italy. And if we project that into 2050, with new applications becoming cost competitive, we see a total energy demand for hydrogen of 220 terawatt hours. This is roughly 20% of the final energy demand, and if you compare that to the projections that we did in the work together with the Hydrogen Council, this is even above average compared to the 18% that we see on a global level. So in order to support this large uptake of hydrogen, we also need to build the value chain around it. And in order to scale up, a number of challenges need to be addressed. First, in production, costs need to come down. This happens to scaling up of renewables and also industrializing the production of electrolyzers. Infrastructure is needed to connect hydrogen supply and demand, and end users, equipment like boilers, fuel cell trucks, need to be deployed, scaled up, and commercialized. And here it will help to really increase the scale of the production. So we do not have a technological challenge that needs to be solved. The technology is there. the main advantage comes from an increased number of production and units. And to make that happen, this is an ecosystem play, as I would call it. So you need to have more players along the full value chain to cooperate and play together. This is not something that individual companies can do alone. And of course, finally, we need to have an enabling regulatory framework, be it for safety standards or codes that need to be harmonized. So also this will not go without the support of the regulator or governments. But if I look at the outlook and the potential that we see, I am super enthusiastic, and also looking into this room, that fills me with optimism that I think that this group of companies and people around the table can really tackle and address the challenges that we have ahead. And I would really encourage us to have now in the breakout discussions a lively discussion about these challenges. And I really thank you for your attention and look forward to the discussion that follows. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Bernard Hyde, Senior Partner at McKinsey. The following session will be a focus on the hydrogen value chain. I remember you that at the end will be a coffee break, and then the hydrogen workshop will begin. So I introduce and invite on stage Marco Alberasio at Snam.
Thank you, and welcome again to everybody. I would like also to thank WEF, who will be conducting the session that we have later. Kristen Panarelli will talk about how that works, but we're very privileged to have WEF here because that means that the work we will do after the coffee break will become integrated into the reports that you know have a global overview. I think it's the first time we have 70 of us in a room. So the purpose of my session now is to break the ice a little bit. I have a long list of speakers, so I will go very quickly from tables. We've organized it in 3 tables. As you know, there's the production or the upstream, the transport or the midstream, and then the end user. So the idea is really to get the ice broken and the ball rolling and to see what's going on right now. And McKinsey showed us a bit of the future, but we did this study together and interviewed a number of you, but I think the purpose of today is to get beneath the PowerPoint, beneath the surface, and really get some facts. And I think you heard from our political leadership that they're now waiting for us. They're waiting for concrete ideas, and I think this is not us, Snam, this is us, the industry. The policymakers are giving us this window, and I think it's up to us to come up with policy ideas and industrial solutions and get the ball rolling, because the opportunity is very big. So I would like to thank Luigi Crema of the Bruno Kessler Foundation, our moderator for the upstream table, and Kees van der Leun of Navigant for the midstream, what we call the midstream or the transport and storage table, and Stefano Campanari for the consumer table of Politecnico. So let's get going. We have about 25-30 minutes and about 20 speakers, so apologize if I will try to keep it really on schedule. So as we wrote in the book, that's a sentence I've always wanted to make. I started as a big hydrogen skeptic because I loved the idea of hydrogen. I loved all the beautiful things about hydrogen, but the cost was so prohibitive. Back in 2002, when I went to an event like this in Japan, I came home thinking it will never work. And it was only very recently that I was looking at some charts and asked my team to calculate at what level does electrolyzer need to come to before we can become competitive. And the second question is, how do we get there and how quickly can we get there? So that's what inspired us to organize the event today, is really the realization that we're not far off. And in some cases, as we heard earlier, we are already there. So I would kick it off. Bertrand from McPhy, where are we? What's the cost of a kilowatt today of electrolyzers, and what's the pathway to get the cost down?
Okay. Thank you, Marco. The cost today, when we look at the global market, is roughly 750K per megawatt, so 750, sorry, per kilowatt. The pathway is to hit the cost parity with SMR in the coming years, so to go to 350, and including fit for purpose. What is important is also flexibility, efficiency, and integration with no compromise on quality and safety. So cost will reduce for sure. We're working on that.
Great. So Adamo from ThyssenKrupp, what would you say? Is it better to have a huge number of small electrolyzers, or should we try to get fewer very big electrolyzers?
Yeah,
You're involved in both. What do you think?
My idea is to go to this path, and we have this roadmap of decreasing by 30% and to reach that price there. But I had another idea. I said, let's make the price of electrolyzer by kilo of electrolyzer. And I make the comparison with a Fiat Tipo, which costs 10,000 euros for 1 ton. A 1 megawatt electrolyzer costs 10 tons, so 100 euros per kilowatt could be possible if we want to dream.
Okay,
and it's important to go large scale and large quantity, not timing.
But where can we get to if we go large scale?
We are ready to supply a gigawatt already. We have the.
At what cost?
Today in the range of 600, of course, today, but can be, of course, decreased as a 30% for the 2025 as the roadmap.
Oh, that's great. Okay, Thierry, I think you also wrote a book on hydrogen before we did. How low do you think costs can and should go, and what time scale?
I'd like to share an experience. When I started in solar 12 years ago with my business Solar Direct, we were at $500 a megawatt hour. And Solar Direct now, NG Solar, is doing projects $20 per megawatt hour. 95% reductions of costs happen in existing technologies. The number that Adamo mentioned is the right number. There's an asymptote. It's admitted everywhere in the electrolysis business that $100 per kilowatt is where we're headed. Now the question is, do we have to wait to 2050? And the answer is no. We can make it happen right now with the right level of volumes and determination. So it's up to do it now.
Okay, that's great. Alberto Lita from Engie. So a lot of this seems, there seems to be a consensus that we can reduce it in different ways, in different numbers, but everyone is talking about the need to scale it up. No, I think that's the key, and to scale it up quickly. You're a big player in this, and we've read about your company's ambitions. What do you think is the best place to start the scaling up?
Yes, thank you, Marco. Indeed, we have to see, we have to look at the figures which have been presented in a systemic way, taking into consideration not only the cost of electrolysis, but also the cost of electricity, cost of transportation, and cost of storages. There are places in the world where access to cheap renewable electricity is available, and where the global industrial ecosystem is favorable to the large-scale deployment of hydrogen. There are countries in South America, like Chile, where this can happen rather quickly. Australia can also be a target for that to start with.
Okay, that's good. Let's hear from another ambitious French company, Gabriel Gauthier from Total. You have a lot of customers in all sectors, and do you think consumers are ready to pay a premium today for clean hydrogen to replace grey hydrogen? And what could that premium be?
Well, that's a difficult question. For the moment, I'm faced to internal customers, which are our refinery, and I will just
Which are the toughest customers? The internal customers are always...
So the challenge of switching a refinery to green, from grey to green hydrogen, and we have a concrete project now in the south of France. The challenge is both technical availability, because it's going to be a small capacity, local electrolysis, or unless we need to have transport and pipes, availability of pipes and storage. So for renewable availability of land to have solar powering if you do it locally. Then we have, of course, the technical issue of the intermittency for the industrial process. How do we deal with that? Battery, hydrogen storage. Then we have a cost issue. Of course, today the cost of green hydrogen versus grey is over 3 times. And one big element is the cost of the energy, renewable energy. Over 20 euros per megawatt hour of cost of energy, electricity in renewable, it's not competitive for the moment. So we have, I'm just dealing with an internal customer, which is our refineries. What premium, and we're just in the middle of that, so I don't have a fixed number, but they are going to have to pay a premium because this number is going to be higher than grey hydrogen. Another way to lower cost is aggregate local demand. So build a cluster, that's what we're trying to do in the south of France, with other industrial users around ports, and of course around mobility.
Great. Thanks very much for that. So that's it for our upstream. I think we got a lot of good ideas. So let's now move to midstream. You heard during the McKinsey presentation, and you heard yesterday, and I don't know how many of you saw the video of Timmermans' speech the day before yesterday. This really struck me because he spoke publicly, basically saying what we're saying. He said, I believe in a future, my dream for the future is to produce a lot of solar energy in North Africa and transport it to Europe using existing infrastructure. The prospect is realistic. I think all our engineers confirm that we can scale up, increase the blending penetration. You heard us talk about our 5% blend. Yesterday we announced we can get to 10%, but that's not for transport. That's for transport, distribution, and use. When it comes to transport, we can actually do a lot more than 5 or 10%. We can even go 100% over longer distances, and the maths of transporting energy via hydrogen is a lot more compelling over long distances than electrons, as we all know. So, Hans Koenen from Gasunie, what are you doing and what are the prospects for what we want to do in North Africa for wind and for the North Sea Wind project related to Dogger Bank?
Yeah, North Sea Wind Power Hub is an initiative from 4 TSOs in Northwest Europe, Germany, Denmark and the Netherlands. And the aim of this consortium is to develop 10 to 15 artificial islands in the North Sea. And big wind parks need to be connected to this island, and then based on an integrated system approach, the energy will be brought onshore. On the one hand, this will be electricity, but also huge quantities of hydrogen will be fed into the onshore grid. What's important in this respect is the size of it, because we are thinking of 180 gigawatts of installed wind capacity, which is huge. And to meet these Paris goals, I think there's is indeed a need for international cooperation and to think big.
Great. That's very helpful. So Daniel Mutman from OGE, you are Germany's largest TSO. We know Germany has great ambitions on hydrogen. You've started a number of projects that we read about. What do you think is the opportunity?
Well, I think the dynamic that we see here is not only here in Italy, it's everywhere. The German government has just endorsed this week publicly the potential for hydrogen, and they said that in December they're going to publish a national hydrogen strategy. So we have launched 3 external projects because we felt we need to move from studies to tangible projects. One is what we are actually planning, building and operating a small local 100% hydrogen grid to show how it can be applied in different sectors. The second one, some of you may have heard, is the hybrid project with the power TSO Amprion, where our role is to convert a 60-kilometer high-pressure pipeline to pure hydrogen. And we have just earlier this week announced a project that we do with Equinor, which is exploring actually gigawatt potential for blue hydrogen in Germany, and what would that do to the infrastructure. All of which, good projects, good progress, but we talk at this table about regulation and legislation, because that's what we need to crack as one point to get forward.
Absolutely, legislation is key. Yves Verkamen from Fluxys. How far away is the Fluxys network from being hydrogen ready, and what are you doing on hydrogen?
Well, indeed, as many of our colleagues, we are working heavily into understanding how we can reuse our network. And as you mentioned as well, we are quite convinced that if you look at our site infrastructure, we can transport without any problem 40% of blends, so 40% of hydrogen blended. We're also looking into converting some of our parts of the pipelines into 100% hydrogen. One big project that we are participating is called the Green Octopus. And the Green Octopus is a kind of a giant backbone, together with the colleagues from Gazony, that we would like to set up, connecting Northwest European ports. So it's a project with Belgium, France, Germany, Denmark. The ambition is to have 2,000 kilometers of 100% hydrogen. It's also including 6 gigawatt of electrolyzers, so the entire project is about 10 billion. So I think, as many of us, we are trying to make it happen. Thank you.
10 billion, that's a lot. Great. So as we increase these blends and as we try to increase the distances, membranes seem very promising as a way, because once you blend it, you may then want to separate it again and use it as pure hydrogen for certain uses. So Nico Bosniak from Ontras, I know you have a pilot on this. Are you optimistic, and how expensive is it going to be?
Oh, that's a good question. Yes, indeed. We are working on a membrane project. We're currently building a membrane on our network because since 2013, we've had 2 electrolyzers injecting hydrogen into our system. So we do have 6 years of experience there, but the experience is also that at some point in time, the hydrogen concentration is higher than is allowed. So at this point, we want to use a membrane in order to separate methane and hydrogen. The pilot is starting up right now. We're going to be using it next year. And of course, the goal is to get hydrogen that is as pure as possible. And so next year, we're going to be seeing how it's going to work, how it's going to impact. In terms of cost, I mean, right now it's just being done in a laboratory, and we're starting the first pilot, so we don't really know where we're going to see the cost. Is it going to lead to a system where all of the European network is going to be blended, and then we just separate at all the exit points with the membranes? Probably not, but is it going to help in the transition to pure hydrogen in the blending process? We're very certain that it will. Thank you.
The reason we like blending is not because it will be the end solution. Some people are against blending because they don't see it as the ultimate solution. The reason we like it, though, is that it's a very cheap way to get going, to get to the scale that the producers here tell us that we need to lower the costs. And once the costs are lower, it's a tipping point, and after that it becomes self-adjustment and it's self-spreading. So we think blending, because we've demonstrated that at least at 5%, you don't need to change anything in the infrastructure. It behaves exactly like CH4. Then suddenly, if Europe, just as an example, committed to a 5% blend for all the methane inserted into the network, 5% blend of pure green hydrogen, and let's say Japan did the same, that would have a very, very negligible cost on the system. The cost would be evenly spread for everyone, and that would generate more than the 50 gigawatt global electrolyzer demand that the world needs to get to those numbers we were talking about, to get to the kind of 50 euro per megawatt hour tipping point, after which it becomes self-spreading. So blending is a means to an end, is not the end in itself, and we fully get that, but it's probably the cheapest and quickest way to get going. So from a policy perspective, we think that's a quick win to focus on. But gas, although we love gas and gas pipelines, that's not the only way to transport hydrogen over long distances. We were at the UN 2 weeks ago. We signed an agreement with the IMO. The IMO is very keen to reduce the CO2 in shipping, and ammonia is a great way to do that potentially without changing too much infrastructure. Of course, ammonia has its own issues, but that's a potential way. Ivano from Saipem, I know you're doing a lot of work on the liquids. What's your view on this alternative way of using hydrogen as a fuel and of transporting hydrogen over long distances?
We think it will be an option for the future. Surely yesterday, Mr. Birol of the IEA agency mentioned this as a key issue for potential advancement and early adoption of hydrogen, because this makes hydrogen transportable over very long distances. We were already designed to our subsidiary Moss Maritime in Norway, which is one of the world leaders in the design of LNG carriers, a sort of evolution of LNG carrier. carrying hydrogen at minus 250 degrees. The ship is perfectly safe and has been designed for 9,000 cubic meters, which is a relatively small amount, but could be interesting for early adoption and testing. And then they are already working for scaling up to a larger unit.
Of course, LNG would be ideal because that would mean probably using some, not all, some of the existing infrastructure. We travel to places, even in the Middle East, there's a lot of excitement around hydrogen and the potential to export that. So thanks for that. Let's move to electricity. Samuel from Iberdrola. We talk a lot about gas and liquids and LNG around here. But what's the impact of all of this on the electricity system?
The impact is not clear up to now, and I think
Keep it closer.
It could be a very good alternative to other systems for making arbitrage in the network, especially in that areas where, for example, there is no pumping hydro or batteries or whatever. So I think more research should be put on the system to clarify the potential role of hydrogen together with electricity networks.
We have a view, maybe it's a romantic view, we call it sector coupling, and we have the phases, the internet dating, and then they get married finally, the molecules and the electrons, which have been in a Cold War since they were started. And I think with hydrogen, potentially they can rejoin forces, and we can talk about energy instead of talking about electricity or gas or liquids. And in the world, someone told me last night, was it you, Thierry, what's the total current global battery duration? 22 seconds. I didn't know that. I learned that last night. If we put all the batteries that exist today in the world, they last 22 seconds. And the potential in 2050 was? 52 minutes by 2050. So we have a lot of people here have a long experience in storing natural gas. 1 BCM of natural gas stored has 10 terawatt hours of energy. That's about, that's like a lot of the nuclear fleet in France, for instance. And that costs about $500 million. To do 10 terawatt hours with batteries, with Tesla batteries, you can do the maths, it's 700 million batteries. They each cost several $1,000s, so you can get to the several trillion that you need. So batteries are excellent and helpful and very good. And yesterday the Nobel Prize was awarded to the people who invented batteries. It really propelled the whole digital and mobile revolution. But for large seasonal storage, we think hydrogen has a good potential. So let's move to downstream, to the users. Our study suggests, or the study we did with McKinsey suggests that we could already be very close to competitiveness in long-distance trucking, for example. So here, let's start with mobility. We have 3 participants, Michele Viale, CEO of Alstom Italia, Ludovico Cinquetto from FPT, and Sabrina Caputi from Toyota. So what do you see in 2030 as a potential in Italy for trains, trucks, and cars?
Good morning, Michele Viale. For trains...
Sorry, Michele, you're in the sun. You can move if it's right in your face. So you feel free if you have the sun in your face.
I apologize. For trains, today we start from Germany before to speak about Italy. Just to say that we have already training commercial service in Germany, the hydrogen train. We have contract for more than 40 trains, therefore is a reality. In Italy, our target is to have by 2025 50 trains at least in commercial service that are not big because you have hundreds of train diesel in commercial service. But really, I believe and I am convinced that at the end of 2050, I do not speak 2030 because it's a long run, we will have 50% of train hydrogen and the rest probably will be other way of transportation, I don't know, batteries or something similar.
Thank you. Ludovico.
Thank you. So, hydrogen truck will be for sure and are already part of our plan. Because within the next CO2 regulation, we have the challenge of reducing the CO2 by 15% in 2025 and by 30% in 2030, which is already a European regulation. And so hydrogen truck will be, and fuel cell truck will be part of that, will be part of a mix. We are part of a European consortium. There will be 16 Iveco fuel cell trucks on the road by 2021, and we are going to start the production in 2023. Is on the newspaper. We have just made a partnership with a USA company, and that company will speed up, together with our engineers, the transition to fuel cell truck.
For those who haven't read it, they invested in Nikola, which is the first name of Tesla. Tesla's name was Nikola Tesla, so it's hopefully the equivalent of Tesla for...
It's equivalent with the right mix between battery storage and hydrogen storage. A truck in Europe needs to run at least for 800 kilometers among refilling, and with the current technology and future technology, hydrogen is the only way to accomplish 800 kilometers among refillings.
Thank you very much, Ludovico. Sabrina, for cars, we have a beautiful
Thank you. Good morning.
hydrogen car. What's the potential?
Toyota is investing a lot on hydrogen as a complementary technology if we look at the battery electric vehicles. In Italy, we do not have a precise target in terms of fuel cell penetration, because honestly speaking, it will depend on how much the infrastructure will develop. For this reason, we are working with several partners, like Eni, for example, to give a fleet of Mirai, which is displayed also on the Plaza.
Thank you for that.
What I can tell you is that globally, Toyota forecasts sales for 2025 to sell 5.5 million electrified vehicles. This means all the range of electrified. Only the fuel cell will be starting from 2020, a production of 30,000 fuel cell powered cars.
Wow.
So, but also Toyota is investing in several projects because, for example, not only on the passenger cars, but also on trucks in other countries, like in California. So we are experimenting the production of a fuel cell truck, and also defined a partnership with Caetano, which is a Portuguese bus provider.
So not only cars, also trucks and buses.
Yeah.
Good, thanks very much. Let's now move to steel. Paolo Argenta from Tenova, what's the opportunity for hydrogen in steel?
Definitely there are a lot of opportunities. Steelmaking is, let's say, responsible for 8% of the overall emissions. We do see now extra costs associated to the use of hydrogen, but we do believe that those extra costs, which probably range between 10, 30, so maybe something a little bit more. Steelmaking is a very variable worldwide activity, and the costs associated are quite different. But what I see is that there is an obvious trend that goes toward reducing the gap in terms of production cost. The big issue could be the investment, because nowadays steelmaking made out of coal and iron ore, which is the main responsible for emission, needs a huge amount of investment to be, let's say, moved toward hydrogen accepting technologies. Just to make an example, if today that 70% of the world capacity using coal and blast furnaces would be moved toward technology that can use gas, we are looking in hundreds of billions of dollars to be invested.
That's great. Good. Thanks for that. Enlightening. Let's look at residential. So we have here Olivier Bousselli from Solid Power. What's the opportunity in homes for hydrogen in the near term and in the longer term?
Thank you. Good morning. Solid Power provides micro CHP based on natural gas. Already today, that cuts for an SME or residential home CO2 emissions by 30 to 50%. That's one step we can do immediately. But the technology is hydrogen ready, so we can inject in the product up to 15% of hydrogen already today and 100% in the future. When we speak about hydrogen, let's think about how do we get rid of the emissions, and also how do we make best use of the energy available. It means cogeneration in domestic places where we produce electricity and heat at the same time for local use makes best sense, and we can start doing it today. and we don't need to wait. So in this respect, we see a localized grid, which will face natural gas or methane, biomethane mixtures with hydrogen, while on the large-scale transmission pipelines, we expect rather seeing the large quantities of hydrogen going to the large users. So it's complementary systems.
Thanks, Olivier. That's great. Luca Negri from Giacomini. Giacomini has a hydrogen boiler. Can you talk to us about that?
Thank you, and good morning to everyone. Well, the question is, we saw from McKinsey that in 2030 we will have the hydrogen in domestic uses. We know that hydrogen is used at the moment in several projects all around Europe, and there is innovation and scaling economies in a lot of enabling technologies, not only solar and electrolyzer, but the boilers, as we do. We do heating, hydronic heating system, so this is a use efficient of the energy. All these things could trigger a faster ramp up compared to what McKinsey was saying, in my opinion. And it's all about I would call it technology ecosystem. So all the technology have to work together. And maybe, in UK they will have Leeds 21 with hydrogen, okay? Maybe we will have...
for those of you who haven't picked this up, Leeds plans to go full hydrogen, so it could be the world's first city to go full on hydrogen.
Yeah, maybe I don't know. So we were talking about ideas and proposals.
You're supplying boilers to Leeds?
Maybe we are not going to have a Leeds 21 in Italy, of course, because we haven't got Leeds. But maybe we can have something different, maybe better. Why not?
Good. So Ernesto Ciorra from Enel. Enel does things in a big way. When Enel started Enel Green Power, you became the world leader in renewable energy. When you decided to look, I think it was in your team, at a fiber optic opportunity, you started one of Italy's largest telecoms infrastructure. I hear that you're looking at hydrogen. You may be thinking about putting together a task force on hydrogen. There's a lot of expectation. What are you planning? What are you doing?
First of all, thanks for inviting me and Enel at this event. I definitely love this event. And we are in love with green hydrogen. Why? First of all, because it's a tremendous opportunity to decarbonize what we call the black hydrogen. The current hydrogen is produced with gas and
we call it gray.
No, okay. it depends, but we remember Star Wars and we think that it's in the black side of the force. Because unfortunately, the black hydrogen emits emission that today, hydrogen, 70 million tons, it emits emissions that are equivalent to the whole emissions emitted in the whole UK and Indonesia in a year. So we need to decarbonize the black hydrogen. And this is very important for us. Why? Because we want to work with you and other companies to produce green hydrogen, starting from renewables. And if the whole amount of hydrogen that today is produced would be produced with renewables, we could increase the consumption of renewables of 3,600 terawatt hours a year. So the whole production of the whole European Union in a year. So it's a tremendous business opportunity, doubling the production of the European Union only to produce the current hydrogen, not thinking about the evolution of the hydrogen or future usage. On the other side, we are already producing green hydrogen in an isolated rural area in Cerro Pabellón in Chile, because 3,600 meters below the sea, isolated, not grid. So we
above the sea, I hope.
Yeah, sorry, above. Sorry, thanks. It's very important for us because in that area we haven't the grid, so we have installed solar, wind, lithium storage, and a device provided us from a startup that is able to produce hydrogen and to produce electricity. So in some cases, even in islands like Ginostra, we are planning to do it because it's useful. So we are in love with green hydrogen. It's a tremendous opportunity. A lot of business will come. and we are definitely committed on working with startups. Before I've heard McPhee from France, they're great, or big companies that want to work with us for a brighter future.
Thanks for that, and thanks for raising what we call gray hydrogen and you call black hydrogen. In the book that we love to quote from, of course, we say that today gray hydrogen costs 50, and these are averages, so of course it can cost a lot less or a lot more depending on where it is and what it's made from, and if you have methane at $1 per million BTU, it's a lot cheaper than methane at $6 per million BTU, but on average, we think gray hydrogen in Europe in 2018 costs $50 per megawatt hour, and we think that blue hydrogen today costs $60 per megawatt hour, and green hydrogen 125. So as electrolyzers come to the cost that the production people have talked about, the green hydrogen could quite soon compete with the gray hydrogen in several parts of the world. So that's really a huge opportunity.
I totally agree with you. Those analyses were correct till 6 months ago. Unfortunately, we are lucky for that, there is a new report coming from Bloomberg, and if you look at it, the hydrogen cost of the electrolyzers capex has been reduced of 1/6. Not of 1/6, sorry, to 1/6. So shifting from 1,200 to 200.
So the producers are less, the consumers demand a quicker decrease of the cost here for.
We have heard this story.
I think Bloomberg interviewed a lot of these people, so
Yeah.
what Bloomberg write actually comes from this table.
And we love that report. We love that report. Congratulations to Bloomberg. And if you think about the renewables, 5 years ago, only 5 years ago, people say, hey, you are stupid, Daniel, because you are shifting all your investments from fossil fuels to renewables. But the cost is too high 5 years ago. But if you look at market cap, we were discussing yesterday with Luca, market cap of those companies that at that time were saying to us that we were stupid, their market cap made this, and we made this. So,
okay, thanks Ernesto. I think I will get told off. We have 1 minute spare of my 30 minutes allotted time. We have maybe seconds, just 20 seconds and 20 seconds. And is there any other urgent question? Of course, we have all morning.
Frankly speaking, I'm not let's say convinced about the reduction of the production cost of hydrogen via electrolysis. I've seen a lot of attention capex. I really not understand how you are going down with the OPEX. Today, we are spending 4.5 kilowatt hour per normal cubic meter. How are you going to go down this? This is the major item that is affecting the production cost.
I think this is a great question for your table to work on during the session. We maybe have another very quick question here. Are there any other questions?
And a consideration more.
Is it son or question?
About two issues. One is the North Africa production of hydrogen. We saw in the past the failure of Desertec.
Yeah, Desertec was electricity, not hydrogen.
So yes. Yeah. But the principle was not the technology, was not the price.
No, the problem is is the price, because we have a pipeline and an electric cable parallel to each other, going from the continent to the UK. I'm telling you, the cost of electricity, we have it. We look at the cost, same distance, is 25 times higher. And that's just to go across the English Channel.
Maybe I started in the wrong way. I'm in favor of that.
No.
So the only caution, I would say, that is also a social aspect on that. So when you go in North Africa, you can do with the electrolysis probably on the shore, and the production in the Sahara is the same thing that the LNG. But you have to explain also that you will leave energy there. Otherwise, you have a political issue.
That's a great point. You allow me to conclude, and we have to close up. We can continue talking. No, we have to close. That's a great point to close on, because we have launched a project called PPWS that can come before hydrogen. Our aim, exactly because of what you said, today we have big infrastructure importing natural gas from North Africa, but North Africa consumes a lot of the energy they produce because the demographics in Africa are growing a lot. So the pipelines that were designed for bigger volumes have a lot of spare capacity. So step one could be to put solar panels in North Africa, give them the energy from solar, free up natural gas that is being burned in power plants that are open cycle turbines at 35% efficiency, and pipe that gas using exactly existing infrastructure to burn it here, where in Germany and Italy we have a lot of spare capacity for CCGTs that are 55% efficiency. So 80% more energy from the sun and 50% more energy from gas and a lot less CO2, even before hydrogen. Thanks for your attention. We now have a 15-minute coffee break and look forward to the discussion later on. Thanks very much.
The next session will be the core of this second day. And before going ahead with the work, I would like to thank to Neva, the illustrator and scribe who is making the graphic illustration in order to synthesize the discussion of the second day. You see it on the wall. Thank you, Neva. And so I remind you that this is a work and technical session. So if you are sitting at the table, you are directly involved in the discussion, and you must have the headphones to participate. And you are involved as an active audience. I remember you these things. We are all okay. So now the hydrogen workshop, supported by the collaboration of the World Economic Forum, begins with an introduction of Kristen Panerali, Head of Electricity Industry of the World Economic Forum. Welcome.
Thank you. First of all, thank you very much to Marco Alvera and Snam for giving us this opportunity to co-create this second to last session of today. I'm going to begin with a brief description of the World Economic Forum, why we're here, and then give you kind of the plan for the next hour. The Forum is an international organization that engages with business, government, and civil society leaders in order to shape global, regional, and industry issues. Now, tackling the world's biggest challenges, like enabling the energy transition, solving for climate change, are challenges that cannot be done alone by government, by civil society, or by business. So what we really need are common efforts and collaboration. So today we are collaborating with Snam to create this session and tap into all of your collective knowledge on hydrogen in order to feed into a broader initiative at the World Economic Forum that's focused on energy technologies with the end goal of 2030. So we all know that energy technology scenarios and forward-looking projections are very economically and politically influential. In the past, many of these projections, such as solar PV, have dramatically underestimated the future costs and performance and role in the energy mix. So what we're doing today is working together to really focus in on cost, performance, role in the future energy mix with this timeline of 2030. Now, at your table, each of you have a moderator that is going to be leading the session. You have earphones, and that's how you're going to be conversing with the other participants at your table. Your moderator is going to lead you through the discussion, and we're going to break it into 3 sections of 20 minutes each. And each of these sections is going to be kicked off with a couple of speakers that have been pre-planned, and then the floor is open for discussion. Then at the end of the 20 minutes, we'll move on to a new topic. So it's going to move quite quickly. So we do ask, there's a couple of rules for this session. First of all, keep your remarks short and to the point, because there's a lot of people at the table, and we do want to hear from all of you. Second, before you speak, do state your name and your organization, but please don't give a description of your organization just to keep things concise. Please stay at your tables. Let's not move around the room. If you're not sitting at a table and you're interested in the discussion, I see it's already happening. People are moving up close to the table. Just please, just to facilitate the conversation, we'd like you to stay where you're at. And finally, from now moving forward, let's operate under Chatham House rule. So you may share the information that's coming out of this meeting, but please don't attribute it to a specific person. We do this so that you have confidence and you're able to more openly exchange the information at your table. So with that, I hand the floor over to our moderators, and we thank you for your contribution to this discussion. The outputs of this are going to be flowing into this existing work stream that we have at the forum that we call Energy Technology 2030. It's going to be in the form of a paper and some videos that are going to be shared at Davos and beyond in order to create more informed policy making and better investment decisions. Thank you. We played the gong too. Thank you. And so to close the workshop, it's now time to share the result. Thank you for your hard work of the last hour. I now ask the moderator of each table to refer to everybody the outcomes of each discussion groups. So please start with Mr. Luigi Crema, and then Mr. Kees van der Looyen, and then Mr. Stefano Campanari, in this order, please. So, Mr. Luigi Crema, please. 5 minutes to you.
Hello? Hello, hello? Hello, hello? Okay, I'll make the first round on the table of hydrogen production. We had a very interesting discussion alongside the three main questions. So we were tackling on the technologies that could provide an answer to the leverage in production for the next time. So here we have had comments that there are technologies ready now, the scaling up can happen now, there are feasible production technologies that can scale up to the gigawatt scale and can be delivered even in 1 year time at the gigawatt scale. So the first message on the production is don't wait that everything could be perfect. We can start with proper business models to produce hydrogen now. Then we move to several questions regarding centralized, decentralized, the scales, what could be the innovating elements on hydrogen production. It is clear that actually to move this sector on, we have a limited time to have a role as Europe to become excellent in the world. So we have in between 12 to 24 months time to start to do things at the scale in Europe. Otherwise, the comment received is that we could lose an opportunity to be a game player at the world scale. Second, yes, there is a urgency to go to the large scale, but in Europe, but even moving outside, there is a room to have even the decentralized. The regional models and hydrogen valleys could have a role on distribution and diffusion of hydrogen, even involving the local communities. And the support by the local communities has been addressed as so much relevant. There is a support by the communities and citizens to hydrogen, and we should leverage on this, even moving to have the right policies to support the distribution and diffusion of hydrogen to the end users. Because one relevant factor is that production is one aspect, but it should be linked to the end use as well. So if this link is missing, there is something that cannot be delivered at all in the market. These are the main messages that came out from this table. Thanks a lot for the contribution.
Thank you. Please, Mr. van der Looyen.
Thank you very much. That was a very dynamic 60 minutes, I must say, at the transport and storage table. We discussed transport by pipelines, which is, by the way, nothing new. City gas consists of 50% hydrogen, so not too much excitement there, but lots of developments around the blending and how that should be allowed, possibly membranes to separate hydrogen and methane at certain points, etc., etc. Also the need for materials R&D to further improve the possibilities here. For the longer distance transport, several options were discussed, like liquid hydrogen, like shipping in form of ammonia and also in the form of liquid organic hydrocarbons, all with their specific qualities, and certainly one recurring theme was that we will not have one size fits all. On storage, we discussed the possibilities in salt caverns, which seem pretty evident, but we'll know much more next year after an experiment in the Netherlands, we heard. But also the possibilities to store hydrogen in aquifers and old gas fields, which are much more early day, but which could bring some additional opportunities to store large volumes of hydrogen. We spent quite some time discussing policies and regulations to drive forward these developments. It's very important there to have a new look at the regulations that were created to get this open and free market, but not to address the climate crisis. So in any case, there should be room for TSOs to work on innovation here, to allow for investments in hydrogen readiness, and to remove some items that TSOs that spend a lot on new developments get punished by their benchmarking. We see it. We've seen that this is very much a topic for cooperation, and this should also be fostered by policies. It's a topic that has a European dimension in transportation, in guarantees of origin, etc., but it also has its global connections. And there might even be the need for global cooperation to make sure that there's a synergy between the developments in various continents. And finally, of course, we discussed also the challenges and the upsides. A lot of developments happening that hold potential upsides in it, like the development of huge quantities of offshore wind in the North Sea, but only if it's treated in the right way. We have to arrive at an integral system perspective to really see the value. A power-to-gas unit you cannot see the societal value by just looking at the business case for that machine only. It can also have a value in, for example, reducing the cost of electricity transmission. And finally, the costs of financing are important. We are always talking about investment costs, but it's also the interest that you pay that will have a high impact on the cost of hydrogen and the usefulness of this solution. And this can certainly be addressed by shaping the projects and the investment climate in the right way, and by the right regulation and cooperation in this field. Thank you very much.
And then please, Mr. Campanari.
Okay. Yes, it was a very fast session, and we tried to summarize the main outcomes. So we have been talking about final uses and demand of hydrogen. And, well, there are many nice points which could be reported. For instance, talking about the final uses, where some of those include micro-cogeneration, solid oxide fuel cell devices, which are nowadays already compatible not only with using natural gas but with hydrogen and blends, any blends practically of hydrogen with methane, could reach a competitiveness when having volumes in the orders of a few thousand units per year. We talked about 5,000 units per year to reach good competitiveness in the market development. Those are an example of final use. While going from stationary to mobility, we have been talking of trucks, and based on the examples given by some initiatives around the world, in California, there's an initiative from the California Harbor Authority which sustains the deployment of fleets of hydrogen trucks with an incentive which is in the order of $100,000 per unit, per truck, which is able to bridge the gap for the first commercialization of those trucks, which are another nice example of final use of hydrogen. Then we talked about surprises and challenges. What could foster a faster deployment of hydrogen? Where there are several interesting projects, for instance, projects related to the establishment of a fully integrated production, transport, and storage and use in stationary and mobile applications in islands in the north of UK. And they're also pointing to new business models where some communities are in a kind of grid-independent situation. But there are also many exciting developments, for instance, in electrochemical membranes, which could allow an efficient compression of hydrogen for its storage with a dramatic simplification of balance of plant costs. And we generally underline the importance of complementarity in those kind of solutions and applications for a most effective connection with the market requirements. Then we have been talking quite a lot about policy and enabling events in rules, standards, legislation, but especially in the field of incentives. And it has been underlined as one of the main points, the importance of keeping the support in the gas infrastructure development in the future, because the gas infrastructure has the role of hub in distributing not only the blend, but in the future, eventually, even pure hydrogen. So it should be treated in, let's say, in a way which takes into account this potential for the future, keeping the support. And also, we talked about possible incentives in the field of electric tariffs, for instance, cutting the cost of transport of electricity for the use of electricity in electrolysis, so allowing those who are wishing to produce hydrogen through electrolysis from renewables not to pay the tariffs for electricity distribution. That would be very effective for allowing a success in those kind of initiatives. So this is to summarize everything. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, so at the end of this morning, I introduced the General Secretary of Hydrogen Europe that represent the European industry, national association and research centers active in the hydrogen and fuel cell sector. Yorgo Chatzimarkakis, welcome to you.
Grazie, it's a pleasure to be here, and my thanks go to Marco Alverà, who organized this event, who made hydrogen a big topic in the European Union. And the result of this I would like to show you in the very beginning by showing you Mr. Timmermans, the new climate commissioner, who made some statements on hydrogen, and they went over what I would have expected. Listen to him now.
We still have an advantage. We still have an advantage. We still have an advantage. We still have an advantage vis-a-vis.
No. Okay. But I can say what he. No. Basically, Mr. Timmermans, I need to explain who he is for the ones who don't know. Franz Timmermans has been the Vice President of the European Commission before. He was reported to become the new Commission President, and due to some political talks, he is again a Vice President next to Ursula von der Leyen, the new President-elect. But he will have the strong portfolio of the Climate Commissioner. And it will be a Vice President who has his own services. So DG Climate, by the way, the Director General of DG Climate is Italian, Mauro Petriccione, who is very, very involved in whatever leads to hydrogen. And now we can listen to what he says. No video. Video, see?
We still have an advantage vis-a-vis other parts of the world if we speed it up. I also believe, because hydrogen, you have no energy loss when you store energy in hydrogen. You also, just if in my dreams, I would create a partnership with Africa, especially North Africa, and we would help install huge capacity of solar energy in Africa and transform that energy into hydrogen and then transport that hydrogen to other parts of the world and Europe through existing means we already have. It is not that difficult to change the pipelines where you now use for gas into hydrogen. It's not that difficult to use LNG terminals for hydrogen. This is my dream of the future energy, because let's not kid ourselves. If we don't incorporate perspective for North Africa or Africa in all of this, we will be weakened from that side as well. So hydrogen, I think, could be a huge opportunity for our economy. If people in the steel industry are already saying now, we could create a situation where hydrogen could be the fuel to have a competitive steel industry. I think these are huge opportunities we should try and use to the maximum possible.
I would say that's quite bold. That's his statement before the European Parliament this week when he had his hearing, and not every commissioner passed the hearing. He passed, maybe because of hydrogen. But he said he has a dream, and there's another guy who has this dream, and that's Marco. Marco was the first one to come to me and say, I want to bring hydrogen produced renewably, especially in Northern Africa, via my pipelines to Europe. He had this dream, and you see that now the Commission will tackle it. So it's not science fiction. It's something very, very concrete. I might recall you that there was another Italian industrialist, Aurelio Peccei, who was the founder of the Club of Rome, who was already at the beginning of making people conscious about what is happening in the world. And we are in Rome, and I think this meeting here shows that there's a lot of interest and there's a lot of hope that this technology might help. I'm the Secretary General of the Association on Hydrogen in Europe, Hydrogen Economy. We have quite some members. Snam, of course, is one of the members. I see a lot of members being here represented. Adamo, you're not yet member. That's ThyssenKrupp. So hurry up. Hurry up. But it's 200 members. Many of them are scientific, research-based. Luigi just spoke to you. Luigi is here. But there is a lot of industrial members as well. We had this week a quite big success. That's one of the reasons why I couldn't be here yesterday, because we launched this Hydrogen for Climate Action Day, which brought together projects, 8 projects, all in all 30 gigawatt of hydrogen in projects, in concrete projects from all the parts of the value chains that you discussed today. We had big audience, so much more than we expected. And that's important because this kickstarts bringing it into the reality and to scale. It's good that we talk about this now, but we need to bring it into scale. And this is what the important projects of Common European Interest tool, the IPSI tool, can do. And we will continue this process that we started with DG Grow, so the industry part of the Commission, and with DG Climate and with DG Competition, and we will continue to do it fast. Why? Because hydrogen answers all the questions that have to do with climate megatrends, nearly all. So it helps to integrate more renewables. It helps to create sector integration, so the coupling of the power, the heat, and the gas sector, and to bring this, to translate this then into applications, in real applications in transport, mobility, heating, and so on. It helps also to become more energy efficient. I'll give you one figure only. Last year, Germany and Spain together curtailed 3 billion euro of renewably produced energy that could not be brought into the grid. That's not efficient. So hydrogen can help to bring this energy efficiency up. I know that many people say it's less efficient than other technologies. This is not the case. You have to see the system efficiency and not single technology efficiency. It helps, of course, the decarbonization. It needs digitalization to be more efficient. It helps to decentralize. You can produce hydrogen both centrally and decentrally, so it helps to decentralize. And, of course, it helps the circular economy by bringing feedstock. Hydrogen is not only a fuel and an energy carrier, it's also a chemical feedstock, by bringing that in. Now, what's the challenge? This is Ursula von der Leyen. This is the close boss of Mr. Timmermans that we saw. And she says, I want Europe to become the first climate-neutral continent in the world by 2050. But in order to get there, she said, we must go further, we must strive for more. A two-step approach is needed to reduce CO2 emissions by 2030 by 50, if not 55. Currently, we want to reduce by 40. And she says we need to go up to 55. How to do it? Green Deal for Europe, responsible Mr. Timmermans, and also the first ever European climate law. And that's why he is important and why it was important that he mentions hydrogen. What's their problem? Their problem is that at the moment we are doing well in decarbonizing by integrating more renewables in power. We are not that well in heat. We are terrible in translating renewables or decarbonized energy into transport. And that is why we need to understand the reasons behind it. The old narrative that the power grid will help, that the all-electric idea will be real very soon is not there. You see here what Germany creates as a problem. They planned 7,700 kilometers of new electricity grid. They realized 950 only. Last year, 2 years ago, only 30 kilometers. That's the real bottleneck. They cannot make it, and other countries as well. And that is why we need to build on that very, very dense gas grid, which is there. And thanks to Mr. Timmermans, it will be more in the focus in the next weeks. And also, this would be socially acceptable much more. You see here that 8 power pylons of 3 gigawatt each would be somehow disturbing people. And that is one of the reasons why they are not built. You can use the gas grid, the existing gas grid, and this is what you see then. And this is something that the politicians discover more and more, and all the studies that we have seen. I've seen Kees van der Leyen, who is the author of one of the studies here from Navigant. All these studies, you saw Fatih Birol, who made the study of the IEA. That's a very important study, both Navigant but also this, because it gives you the status of where we are. But that's not enough. The studies are there. We need to act now. And this is why we will become very active. This is crowded. But the blue thing is the upcoming gas regulation. That's all the CO2 emission laws. And in this upcoming gas regulation, Marco, as the president of Gas Naturally so far, we might have a new name, we will see, but he's the president, will be extremely present and extremely important in Brussels to get this upcoming gas regulation having a lot of renewable gases and, of course, a lot of hydrogen. I think it's a great event. We build on you, and we will need you, and thanks very much for having me. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So thank you all for taking part in the second day of the conference, which I hope will lead ideas and results. And Marco, do you say something?
We have just a couple of minutes. Thank you to WEF. We loved this methodology. We created a lot of expectation yesterday. The people from the institutions, the policymakers have asked us explicitly to come up with some concrete ideas and proposals. And I know they have been shared. A lot has come out. We will find a way to distribute the more detailed findings of the roundtables. I've picked up a few things that I would just, in very brief summary, the idea from the producers that we have a sense of urgency, I think, is something that we need to communicate the 12 to 24 months period. And for me, it's new to learn that we can already think about the gigawatt scale. That really pushes us to action. I like the idea of off-grid communities and finding places where we can immediately get going. And Enel talked about Chile, but also in Europe we have some communities that could really afford more and cheaper energy immediately. I think there's a lot more work that we need to do on membranes, on materials. It sounds experiments going on in the Netherlands on storage and aquifers, well, in salt caverns in Holland, but also aquifers and underground. We are ourselves investing a lot in this. I think storage, of course, will be a key part. The other number that struck me is the 500 units, 5,000 units per year, I think you said, are needed before we can get to scale and to efficiency on the consumer end. And just frankly speaking, I'm redoing a home, and I would love to be able to put in a fuel cell and contribute to be one of those 5,000. So I would really, really like to thank Luigi, Kees, and Stefano. You've done a tremendous job. It's not easy to moderate a table of 20, plus people listening, plus a hot room, plus another 2 tables next to you. So really, really well done. I would like to thank all the institutions that have supported us and are present today and have come yesterday. I would like to thank all of you for being here, for taking the time. I really appreciate it. I think we can comfortably say that the ball is rolling in several directions. We have multiple balls rolling, and I think that's my most positive surprise today. There's a lot more going on than certainly I thought 6 months ago, and even I thought before these 2 days. I hope we also managed to create some connections. I've seen a lot of business cards sharing. I think the purpose for this, and we can continue now at the networking lunch, but is to really get the industry moving together, the finance people, the industry people, the technology people, the policymakers. I think really the clock is ticking, and now we have concrete solutions. So I'd like to conclude by thanking all the organizers and the Snam team. I think you have surprised me. You surprise me every day, but really with this event, you really, really impressed, I think, us and everyone. So thank you very much to all of you. Let's go to lunch.
Thank you. Thank you to Snam for the organization. Thank you to Snam. Grazie, Marco. So the networking lunch is at the Grand Hotel Plaza, just right in front of us on Via del Corso. Thank you to you. Have a good day.